Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Josh Heupel, the Tennessee Vols, playing host to Mississippi State this weekend. And Dill, the first thing that crosses my mind when you talk about this matchup, this is a great opportunity for this Tennessee offense to finally really hit its stride heading into that matchup against Georgia in 2 Saturdays from now. And against Kentucky, which I think is a relatively good defense in the landscape of the SEC. I thought that was Nico's best game that he's played as the starting quarterback for this Tennessee Vols program. And it might not necessarily reflect on the box score that was as comfortable as he looked. I thought he attacked that intermediate route tree extremely well. You can see a young quarterback quickly starting to figure it out. And I think the expectations were so high heading into 2024 when he didn't meet those expectations early. I mean, people were so quick to say Nico's not the guy. This is a young quarterback that is still kind of blossoming and maturing within this Tennessee Vols offense. And I think the most exciting aspect coming out of that Kentucky game was the ship is clearly going in the right direction. And you have I'd rather play Mississippi State before this Georgia game than have a bye week. You look at Mississippi State and they just don't have the SEC dudes on defense. This is an opportunity for Tennessee and this offense to really get some confidence going on the road to Georgia next Saturday. Fired up to get into this matchup. Now, before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. These preview prediction episodes, they've been a blast for the boys. All the support y'all continue to show, it means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section. And Dill, without further ado, I kind of said this. I think this was the best game we've seen from Nico as a Tennessee starting quarterback. I think you agree. You were the one that was really hyping Nico up Saturday night. I'll give you the floor here. What did you see from Nico against a good Kentucky defense that you like so much?
That's what I was going to say. As much as Kentucky's record isn't really what you want it to be if you're a Kentucky fan, that's a really tough defense. They have a defensive line that does a good job getting after quarterbacks, and they have a secondary that's really, really well coached, has a lot of experience, and have put a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. I mean, you look at the performance Jackson Dart put up against that team. You look at what Carson Beck did against that team. Like, they've done a good job challenging quarterbacks, and what I really like seeing was you see Nico's completion percentage well above 70%. That's been kind of one issue I feel like you've seen in conference. He's only completing about 62% of his balls, which isn't a horrible stat. But if Tennessee, like the way they want to run and be able to control games on the ground and be really efficient in terms of what they're doing, I think you want to see that completion percentage continue to inch up. So for him to complete about 73%, against that Kentucky team, that's a really, really good number. And he needs to be able to play that way where he's consistently making the throws that are there because he's had them all year.
Yeah, you can talk about completion percentage. I'm more excited about the ball placement that he had. I mean, he was much more accurate than we've seen over the last couple of weeks when those throws were to be made. He largely was making them, especially in that intermediate route tree. I mean, you take a look at the balls between 10 and 20 yards down the field, kind of that money shot that Tennessee likes to hit. He was 8 of 11, like a really, really good number. Now, pushing the ball down the field, you saw him dialing it in as well. You want to see some players go and make some plays for him down the field. That was kind of the bugaboo for Nico when he was struggling early on in the season. He seems, dealt with some pressure pretty well. Again, that Kentucky team can get after you. But I think more importantly, when the throws were able to be made, especially off some of those RPO looks, looked really good. And I think the second storyline, Dill, is like Tennessee's getting back to running the football. Like you talk about why are we so confident in this Tennessee team? They run the football well. They play good defense. They got back to running the football against a good Kentucky defense. That's kind of the recipe when you're talking about Tennessee being that true, not only college football playoff caliber team, but I would go as far as say like SEC championship contender. Because when we're talking about the SEC landscape, Georgia does not look like that juggernaut that we're used to seeing from that team down in Athens. I think Tennessee, a team that maybe is hitting their stride late in 2024, if Nico continues to put it together, and we know this is not very far from that kind of like reaching their peak on offense, like fire me up for this Tennessee team and the damage they can do come late November.
And in this game, especially when you play a team that's far inferior to you in Mississippi State, I think you really like to see them again. They probably could just put the ball on the ground and pound it down Mississippi State's throat and never really throw it or try to push the ball down the field. I wouldn't mind seeing them do it because, again, you saw it click a little bit last game. And frankly, you mentioned, I mean, there were two key drops that are probably touchdown passes. The one to Brazel, he's got to make that play. I think that's a really, really good throw. And the other one to Nimrod, he probably should have made that play on the slant and taken that to the house. So again, as much as you probably could play a conservative, safe game, I really would like to see them try to challenge Nico and let him rip it around a little bit. Because frankly, when they go play Georgia, that's an issue Georgia's had all year, their ability to cover vertical routes and downfield passing attacks. I think that has to be part of that game. So I wouldn't mind seeing Nico get the chance to really, again, kind of follow up a good performance against Kentucky with another stellar one against a team that they certainly can kind of roll
Yeah,
over.
you should be doing, and with all due respect to the Mississippi State fans, and again, I'm not like out on Jeff Lebby. It's just when you watch this Mississippi State team, it's very clear that these players on defense just aren't as big, aren't as strong, aren't as fast as the SEC offenses that they're trying to work against. 38 points per game allowed. That's 123rd in the country. They're allowing almost 6 yards per carry. They're allowing almost 9 yards per pass attempt, which is 122nd in the country. If you're Josh Heupel in this Tennessee offense, you should be feeling like you can do what you want on Saturday. And I'm kind of with you. Like, don't just sandbag this one in. Let Nico go around and rip it and get some confidence going into next week against Georgia, because you look at some of those throws that Tennessee has left on the table this year. You can expect to leave those throws on the table when you go down to Athens, Georgia, and win that football game. So I want to see kind of Nico just build upon the performance we saw against Kentucky on Saturday against
And one
Mississippi
final
State.
thing is, I think that was the best play action work we've seen from Tennessee all year. And that was always going to be a big one. I think we talked about how they haven't really involved their tight ends in the offense. That is
Yeah.
Tennessee in the past handful of years. You kind of saw them start to emerge. I mean, Klitzman was obviously the guy who was kind of leading the way, but you saw the other ones working too. I mean, Stays had a nice game. So again, I think that's going to be a part of what, if they get Nico in a rhythm, I wouldn't mind seeing more play action, more success with those tight ends, because they did a really good job beating Kentucky up with that concept. And again, when you run the ball like the way they're running with Dylan Sampson, I feel like that part of their game is probably open, and it gives Nico some easier throws to really get rolling.
Shout out Peyton Lewis getting some work as a running back too. The Tennessee fans who've been rocking with the boys know I was a massive fan of him coming out of high school. Good to see him get involved. Now you go over to the defense still. I will say this, the veer and shoot, Jeff Lebby, and that quarterback, that true freshman quarterback, Mike Van Buren, he can sling it. And he's really impressive. And I wonder if Mississippi State can keep him out of the transfer portal this offseason, because I think there's a lot of college football teams that want Mike Van Buren starting for them in 2025. The Mississippi State offense, we kind of know what they're going to do, right? They're going to run fast. Tennessee's used to seeing this kind of offense that Tennessee runs. That being said, the playmakers are just kind of on a different level as well. Getting into this Tennessee defense, I think first you want to see this pass rush really get after it. I mean, again, you talk about when you're not an SEC caliber team playing in the SEC, it shows up along the lines of scrimmage. Mississippi State's really struggling to protect the quarterback. Tennessee's pass rush is one of the best in the country. You feel like Tennessee's kind of going to dominate there. And you kind of look, Dill, I'll kind of ask you, what do you see Mississippi State doing on offense that can give Tennessee some problems on defense? And I don't know if you have an answer for that.
Honestly, it'll probably be in the rushing game and probably trying to force those linebackers to play really good football, because you go to that Texas A&M game, I mean, against a really good defensive line, they were able to gash them on a couple of runs. And again, I do think that Lebby kind of run scheme, if you will, does a good job of putting some stress on linebackers. And again, Tennessee obviously losing their middle linebacker early in the season, and they've had their young guys step up. Arian Carter started to make it happen for sure. There are other guys like Thielander are playing good football. But again, you saw even against Florida, not perfect run fits all the time.
You saw one right off the bat against Kentucky. Right off the bat, I think they chunked him for 50 yards. Now, that's not a common occurrence. You look at the yards per carry that this Tennessee defense has given up, it's 2.3. That's number 2 in the country. You're kind of right. Like, how Mississippi State wants to attack you, it's kind of similar to how Tennessee wants to attack you. You want to get some guys in space and let your individual talent make some plays. Again, when you come down to like the talent level, and we've talked about this a lot for this Tennessee defense, they just look different from the Tennessee defenses we've seen in the past. They're bigger, stronger, faster. You can tell the work that Tennessee's done on the recruiting trail is now getting reflected on the football field for this team in 2024. Yeah, I don't see Mississippi State having a ton of success, and I think Tennessee can kind of overwhelm them on the defensive side of the football.
No,
And
I
Dill,
don't necessarily see them having a ton of success, but if I'm gonna look at one place, like, I don't know that this secondary is gonna be wildly challenged, just given that I don't think the pass protection is gonna hold up. Again, the one place that Mississippi State maybe can, if they can, like, maybe keep this game close for some portion of it, it'll probably be being able to rip off a big run or something like that. Because again, I just don't see how they can really throw the ball effectively. As much as like Michael Van Buren's playing really good football under pressure. I mean, his coming in, he's a little bit more athletic. He has made some plays, but I just look, this Tennessee defense is too athletic, I think, to play an offensive line that's probably playing at the level of Mississippi State.
so kind of circling back and evaluating Tennessee's defense against Kentucky, and I saw a Tennessee Vol fan put this in the comment section. Now, it made me laugh because I low key think it's true. It seems like these teams, like Alabama, didn't play their best football against Tennessee, but Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, like all three of those teams seem to play their best football against Tennessee. I don't know what the reason is, but that's kind of what we've seen. I don't think the Tennessee defense was all, it was probably the worst performance we've seen from the Tennessee defense, which is saying something. They only allowed 18 points. Kind of just got to give credit to Kentucky. Like they made some plays down the field that you don't normally see these Kentucky teams make. Brock Vandegrift made some big time throws, but at the end of the day, Tennessee forcing turnovers like they did, the offense picking it up. It's kind of how you want it to see for Tennessee, and you maybe want to see it get cleaned up, but I don't think there's a ton to get cleaned up. I think they were still pretty damn solid against Kentucky. Dill, well, let's get into the pick here. The line's sitting at 23.5 points for Tennessee at home. Who you got here?
I mean, it's like I'd probably lean Tennessee, but that's a big spread. I feel like once you get out way past 21, it's like, well, you kind of just rolling the dice a little bit if Mississippi State can have one lucky play or do something that, again, like pick six, some sort of play like that. But at the end of the day, if Tennessee plays a good game, they're going to beat this team by 40 points, like they
Yeah,
were
and
beating
I
people
think
40 points earlier.
my thinking is I think Josh Heupel might put the pedal to the metal a little bit, and kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like get this Tennessee offense feeling like it's a juggernaut heading into that matchup against Georgia. Like I think you're going to see Tennessee. I don't know if you'll leave your starters in for if you have to, again, if it gets out of hand. But I do think Tennessee's going to let it fly a little bit and try to get this offense as confident. Because, again, when you come down to Tennessee struggles, I think it's more of just a confidence issue for Nico. Like, I don't think he had the confidence early on in the season. Like, we all know he can make those throws. Now you just want to get him confident enough where, hey, every time I get that opportunity, I know I'm putting it right where it needs to be. I feel like you're going to see Tennessee try to get to that. Give me Tennessee to cover the number. I think they're kind of in smash mode going into Georgia. I think they're going to be dialed in. We'll close it out there again. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.